The future of schooling. In 2001, the OECD, the Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development, put out a report entitled The Future of Schooling. Now, the OECD, for those who may not be aware, are those same people based in Paris that, amongst other things, put out the PISA scores that ranks countries' education systems. And regardless of what we might all think about testing and ranking systems overall, the 2001 report is worth a look back, as it proposed, and I'm summarising here, 3 scenarios for where education may be in the not-so-distant future. Education as a system and as a social and economic enterprise. They came up with 3 general scenarios: status quo, deschooling, and reschooling. The first one they outlined was status quo, or as they described it, either status quo extrapolated or extending the market model, and they foresaw little change in systems but an expansion in reaction and consequences. They described this scenario as continuing the strong bureaucracies, the vested interests, with a resistance to fundamental change, but also continued problems of school image and a lack of funding. And some of the consequences, amongst other things, might be greater divide between school quality, teachers, and even credentialing. Sound familiar? Certainly quite plausible. Now, these quotes come straight from the report, but let's highlight a couple of the words, because this dissatisfaction would be driven by articulate middle-class parents and political parties. They mention parental choice, including in some cases vouchers, the involvement of the private sector in running schools, and the corporate promotion of the e-learning market. A reduced role for central providers, and an increase in inequalities and exclusion. All of these quotes, remember, come straight from the 2001 publication. But then, if that wasn't bad enough, they also forecast deschooling. Expanding learner networks, but also leading to and caused by a meltdown and a teacher exodus. This rosy environment would be characterised by an abandonment of schooling institutions, increased dissatisfaction, and even a dismantling of school systems. And while there was an increase in distance learning opportunities, there was also an increase in inequity and a widening of the digital divide. Widespread public and media dissatisfaction, teacher retirements and shortages, and aggressive media companies among those helping to disestablish schools. Teacher rewards or bonuses, all part of measures to tackle shortages. But before we despair, there was a third scenario, reschooling. Defined as schools as core social centres and focused learning organisations, characterised by high level of public trust and funding, with schools becoming the hub of the community and seen as key to developing each community's social capital, with greater priority given to social and community roles of schools. And these schools will be aided by greater autonomy, where experimentation and innovation will be the norm. They'd be available to all communities meeting critical social responsibilities. Inequalities reduced, but diversity widens, and social cohesion strengthened. Less bureaucratic, more diverse, and a general erosion of high school walls. A 2001 OECD report on the future of schooling, with 3 general themes. So where are we? Each one sounds plausible, and each is probably in the midst of coming true somewhere in the world, or even somewhere in the US. So let's ponder on these questions. Has it come true, or is it coming true? Is the writing on the wall? And what can or should we do? What do our panellists think? Now let's bring our two conversations together. Choosing your tomorrow today, and this one, the future of schooling. And given what we've said, what should we be concerned about? What should we advocate for? And what do we need from education?